New 72 Radio, the voice, views, and visions of the collective.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Healthy View. And I'm Rebecca Taylor Shaw, and I'm here with Len Young and Dr. Stela Susac-Pavic. And we are going to jam session on relationships today. For those of you who are new to our program, our mission is to share different perspectives, different views on health. And we really believe that sometimes when people get stuck, that the key is finding those different views, looking at things, your problems from a mind, body, spirit perspective. And we are doing a series on relationships that we'll be covering in the next few episodes. And today we're going to talk about and discuss relationships in the workplace and in the electronic world. So I'm going to start, and I just want to say why we've decided to start with work relationships is because many of you probably realize that you spend more time at work with your work family than you might with your home family when you start counting waking hours. So I have worked with so many people that have come through my office as a clinical hypnotherapist, and they're talking about stress, and we're looking at the stressors, and there can be quite a bit of stress in the workplace due to different personalities and how to interact with different personalities that you work with in order to be more positive, stress-free. And some of the things that come into play in work relationships is that you're in this enclosed environment, you have to get along, and different people have different ways that they cope with stress or they're not coping with stress. And people will bring their personal problems to the workplace. I'm sure many of you have seen that. So I wanted to just kind of point out that one of the things I see being a big challenge for many people in the workplace is that you've got certain personalities who like to be in charge. And if you like to be in charge, that can cause some headbutting. And even if you don't like to be in charge, it can be stressful, because if other people are trying to manage you and tell you what to do, especially if they're not your boss. And also for those of you who are highly sensitive people, this can be very challenging, because every day when you go to work, you're interacting with the energy and the emotions of everyone else around you. And if someone else is stressed, if they're high strung, if they're anxious, that may impact you, your clarity, your focus, your energy, and your motivation at work. So one of the things that I like to share with people in the workplace as far as relationships is to be very aware of your own energy and aware of the ability that you have if you begin to focus on it and learn about it. And it's what I call healthy detachment. So that means if you walk into the workplace and your boss is super stressed out because there's a deadline, or one of your coworkers is upset because their child just got an F in school, or they have car repairs that need repairing, and they don't have enough money. Whatever it is that you're walking into, you don't have to immediately take that on. I do what I call bubbling up. So that means I'll envision putting a little bubble of energy around me, and other people's stressful energy, stressful emotions, even critical comments. You can just picture them like little black arrows that hit your bubble and bounce off and away. Now, that might sound a little woo-woo, but the subconscious mind responds through pictures and imagery. When we see a stop sign, we'll put our foot on the stop will go from gas to brake instantly because we've conditioned ourselves with that image. You can do the same thing when you enter the workplace. If there are stressful people around you or stressed out people, just imagine that there's this barrier between you and their energy and emotions. And then the one other thing I want to share with people is that those of you who are very caring and sensitive, when people are sharing their problems, there's usually always someone in the workplace who's needy and sharing a lot of drama, or both. And it's really important to understand that you don't have to fix it for that person. Sometimes we want to fix it because if they feel better, then we're more peaceful in what we're doing. But probably one of the best things you can do for people who are complaining or going through drama is to just empathize or, acknowledge what they're feeling. I hear how angry you are. I hear how frustrated you are. And then pause and ask them, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I've given this advice to many of my clients who want to give the solutions, who want to be the lay therapist at work. And it really impacts them in a really good way where they come home every day with a lot more energy when they're not trying to be the fixer in the workplace. So those are my 2 top tips for the workplace today in regards to relationships. And now I'd like to go to Stela.
Thank you. We always hear a lot of wisdom from you, and that's exactly what I'm going to carry, and what you remind me as the most important things when we are in our working environment, and when we're facing all the problems of the having job done, is exactly when we are facing something. It's the main question that we need to ask ourselves: what exactly I can do about that? Is this something that I can make a plan and approach and solve? Or is it something that in this moment looks unsolvable and I will put in one of the drawers of my mind and approach in the maybe somewhere in the future, maybe never, because the problem is unsolvable, because there are those things like that. So when we're talking about work in the relationship at the work, I do have a opportunity and the luck and experience to be on the 2 aisles of the problems. I was employee, I was younger, and I always was feeling that boss or my supervisions are not fair, or they want me to do more, or they want me to, or that I'm not properly gratified, that they do not realize my potential. And as a complex human being, as we are, every single person, we need to be aware that every single person that we are in a relationship with is similarly complex as we are to ourselves, in the term of the searching, in the term of the finding what is our merit at the working environment. Other things that is happening to me the last 3 years, I finally reached what I wanted to be. I wanted to be boss. I wanted to make my business working on the way I think it's the best. That is also very interesting experience, because there is no static there. It's infinitive things. It's a learning curve. I made so many mistakes of the maybe trusting too much, of the maybe just going with the intuition, putting my rationality and my intellect as a second decision maker, and put my heart and my intuition as the first decision maker, and they need to be combined in my case, or in the case of any successful manager. So looking at the people from that point of the view, I do understand that there is so many different personalities that and how people are actually watching on the boss, how much more I need to do to reach their trust in the term of the relationship, to put that I have the best intention for them in the term, not just for the work to be done, but also to help them discover how further and how fast and how far away they want to go in the researching the merit and to put the best that they can in the working environment in the term of the finding who they are, and in the search for, I do believe, the most important things in a working relationship, and it's a finding its own merit in everything that we do. So in that context, I will have Miss Len Young to continue with her rich experience from all aisles. And please, Len.
Thank you, Stella. I too have had a similar experience to Stella many years. I'm older than she is, and worked both in a corporate environment and then in a much smaller office, and where I was both an employee and then a manager, and then managing a whole office, and then moving to what all three of us do, which is have our own businesses. And it has been a very different experience. My eyes have been opened about all the different roles that we've taken in our culture as the culture has grown. So what I wanted to do was just pull back a little bit and comment on who we are as a culture, because that influences all of us in our lives. And back once again around the Industrial Revolution, our culture really became focused in capitalism. And capitalism actually is the basis is money. And money drives how people think. It drives how we live our everyday lives, how we are successful or not in a job. And as a result of this whole capitalism thing, we can either be in a company that's a small company where the manager has heart, Stella, like you were talking about, where there is a thought of the whole of who's working with you and for you, or it can be a large corporation who's working for the people who own stock. And then the bottom line is the most critical thing, and very often they're attainable and unattainable goals that are given to employees to do, which adds stressors to their lives. So in thinking about that, it's valuable to think, where are you living? What is your job? What kind of organization are you in? And what are the expectations that are there for you as an employee or as a manager with employees, and also an employee yourself to upper management? Well, how does that influence you? Does it bring fear? Do you feel strong enough that you know you're going to be successful every day when you get out of the bed and you're excited about going to work? How does this relate to you as a person? And so it comes down to, again, are you listening to yourself? What is your relationship with yourself? And do you give yourself some time every day? And I mean, even just as you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, do you say, gosh, I'm beautiful and I do well in the world and I'm healthy, I choose health, I'm going to smile at the world today. I know I have some challenges. This is the way I'm going to approach my day, so that your relationship with yourself is strong and you can meet and greet anything that comes to you in the day. The other side of that is all three of us have another relationship we haven't even approached yet, and perhaps we can do that in one of our next sessions. And that is our relationship with our clients. I mean, we are in a business because we have consumers coming to consume what we are offering. Health for Stella, habits with Rebecca, listening for me, and I do other things as well. And in all of those jobs, my expectation is to interact with the other people who are involved in those positions and those jobs, and to get business for myself. So who am I and how am I showing up? And am I staying true to who I am? Do I feel well about it? Do I feel good about it? And I think this is something I wrestle with every day. And there are times when my body doesn't feel great because maybe I ate something that I don't normally eat, like the croissant I ate yesterday, and my body just really, rebelled against that. Is that affecting how I look at the world today? And then I overcome that. I say, no, I'm healthy. I'm wonderful. The day's great. I look at the sun's out. It's going to be a great day. And that whole approach helps me go into what I do in the day in a much better way. So I would encourage you to think about yourselves first, in the day, first in the middle of the day, first at the end of the day, and how you bring that self into your daily experience because you're the leader of your joy. Would you say that's true, Stella? As we go into, looking at how electronics really affect how we work in the world?
Exactly. So what you actually talking about is how we communicating with each other, how we communicating with ourselves, and how we communicating with the people we work and everybody else. There is a great German philosopher, and he's theologian, Mr. Martin Buber. He believed that only through the respectful dialogue, a relationship will grow. So he says the ability to fully engaging and being present when communicating with one another is the basis of the growing in the similar goal that we have, in this case, at the work. So what is happening today in this world is that where actually electronic communication, what electronic communication become? Is electronic communication like a texting, instant messaging, emailing? Is this social media? Is this reliable? And definitely it's become the chosen form of the communication between partners. Is this actually something, is this the way on which we are losing body language and the face-to-face communication, in which we do not fully understand and grasp the communication and the exchange of information between two people or the group of the people that will actually lead us to the better relationship between all involved? Or is this lost through that those so-called computer-mediated communication? So we know that 60 to 80% people in the Western world actually texting, constantly communicating with email. Our scheduling system is done by that. So there is a question here, is face-to-face still golden standard of the communication? Or can we actually rely on this, for example, form of the communication and will express our body language and meanings to each other in order to form meaning and the building of the relationship in order to achieve the higher goal. And the goal is to have a job done, and the goal to have a job done in which everybody most of the time will feel successful and fulfilled inside. So what non-verbality in this computer-based way on which we communication, is it so focused, and is it resistant to influence? And is it negative because we do not have that fulfillment of the communication? Is it removing non-verbal behavior? So just the texting or emailing, are we becoming the society that is become close to the influence of the verbal and the body language that is actually will help person to change opinion or to grow? So the best example of that is that we're working with the people who use a different kind of the social media, not just for the business relation purposes like email, texting, exchanging of the quick information, but we also working with the people who use the social media, they are like a Facebook, Twitter, blogger, in which they exchanging their point of the view without actually having open and long dialogue of those certain things. Mm-hmm. So the question is, how we forming opinion of the, and then with the goal of the achieving a job done, from those small interaction and error that we perceiving that certain people we work with are sending to us. How much is the lost in that nonverbal communication, and can we achieve actually better understanding from each other using face-to-face, using the media that we right now using, and that's the actually whole study going on behind the scene, to focus and analyze as a society, are we going to lose it or win it, that new form of the communication that we are communicating with each other. I'm in belief that we are winning, because we evolving, we understand that certain words has a power, that we want to avoid them in a relationship. And I will go back to the Mr. Martin. It's a dialogue, a respectful dialogue, and an ability to try to give your best in everything that we're doing, that will fulfill our soul, even with any mean of electronic communication, including texting, emailing, and all of those sorts. So I would like to hear your experience in that world.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that it's interesting you bring it up like that, because in the workplace, the millennials are working very differently. You know, they have wide open spaces and they're big tables, and everybody has their laptop and they can focus in on their laptop and they get their work done. And my son had an experience where he was running a group, and they had some people working virtually, and it became obvious that the people who were together in the room were talking among each other, and the people who were virtual were not being included as much. So they actually worked on solving this, because they needed the virtual engineers. They were critical to the coding and things. So they created a situation where everybody was virtual, like we are right now. We're all in the same position. So we're all listening to each other equally. And they have robots. They have a situation where every person who comes to that meeting now is virtual, even if 4 of them are at the office together and the other 2 are out of state. So I think, Stella, that we are winning. I think humans are going to ask for that interaction. In my work, and I am basically virtual across the United States, when I get a client with the tomatoes, I immediately ask if they have Skype. I offer this Zoom or FaceTime. And, you know, it's interesting. People don't like FaceTime as much. I think it maybe doesn't look as healthy, but Skype works beautifully. And when I'm on Skype with someone, I feel like they're in the room with me. It's a very interesting shift that I've made to accept their being on a computer, but who they are, that I'm having a one-on-one conversation with them. So I use it all the time. And one of the things I do when I don't see a child in person is ask the parents to get the child onto Skype, even if it's someone who doesn't talk in the speech delay, or if it's an autistic child, or if it's a teenager struggling with something. It's very helpful for me to see them, to hear them. I hear what they're saying and their response to me, as opposed to hearing through their parents their perception of how the child's functioning. So it's very helpful to use Skype and electronics like that. But I know, I use the computer, and I use texting, and I use email as a critical part of how efficiently my business works. And then I depend on these other wonderful modes of communication to bring that human aspect in, to bring the person in, so that I can actually really help them in whatever reason why they're coming to me to begin with. So Rebecca, how do you work with that? Because I know you come actually from some experience in the electronic field, and then to bring it with the healing, I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I was a computer programmer before I started doing clinical hypnosis, so it's paid off. So I'm pretty good in the virtual world. And people often ask me, can you do hypnosis virtually? Yes, I do Skype, Zoom, all the time with people. We talk and then I hang up and make your recording. And I wanted to mention a couple things that both of you said. One, Stella, I loved what you said about really clarifying and discerning when you're in the workplace, when you can tackle a problem and when you need to put it aside or put it in the box. My mom used to say, pick and choose your battles. And so I think that's a really great inner skill to know, is when to tackle something and when to just move on. And then I love what you said, Len, about intention. When, when you're communicating with people live or virtually, really thinking about your intention. And I think that can transform how you communicate if you think about what it is you really want to gain through the communication. And I think we've almost defaulted into texting with people more than live communication. And a couple days ago, I was texting with a friend and we were trying to hash out something. We do some work together. And finally he said, wait a minute, I'm going to call you. So he picks up the phone and calls me and said, wow, this is so much easier than going back and forth. So I don't think we're ever going to get rid of our electronic way of communicating. But the thing to ask yourself is that the best way for me to communicate what it is I'm wanting to say right now? And I would say, especially with kids. I have 2 teenagers, age 15 and 16. When we're out and about, we rarely talk on the phone. We'll do the texting. But if we have some serious conversations or something I'm really wanting to discuss with them, I think one of the main things is just being aware of setting aside a time to speak with someone when you'd be better off conveying something that might be serious, that might elicit a negative response or disappointment or conflict. If you're coming from the heart, try to have those conversations at least over the phone, if not in person. With teenagers, a great time to do that is while you're in the car and driving. So you're not staring them down and they have time to process and you can share without as much pressure. That seems to work really great with my 2. And they open up a lot while we're in the car. But even with clients, coworkers, just think about if you're entering into something where there might be a miscommunication or misunderstanding because you're just texting something with no tone, with no softness to it, with no kindness to it. You have to tell someone something that seems difficult. I know we want to avoid it and have that conflict or avoid the conflict, but in the long run, you'll probably be better off having the face-to-face or voice conversation so people can hear if you are saying something that might be disappointing or creating conflict. They can hear the kindness in your voice. They can hear the love behind the intention about what you're trying to resolve.
I think that makes a big difference. And we all have children and we've all had to go through different stages with them. And you're right, Rebecca, particularly when we're dealing with families and that work-life relationship. How do you take care of your work life and your family life and bring them together? That's something we're going to discuss in more detail. How do you have relationships with each child, with your spouse? How do you have relationships with your parents and friends? I mean, when do you fit them into your life? And what decisions can you make about that can bring you joy in your wanting to be involved in the community, do some volunteer work? How can you fit all of that in with time? And I think it's working with time, but also letting time not totally lead your life so that you're making decisions about where you want to find happiness and how your day can bring you joy, and you can bring that into your family. Any further notes, Stella? We just have a minute left.
I would just like to finish with advice to myself that I would love to share with our listener. So clearly expressing our own ideas in the kindness, but also listening well and honoring ideas of others. I think it's a key in the healthy relationship. So I do believe that should be focused to each other, to understand and to send the love and the mercy and understanding to each other. When we have a negative emotion, I advise again breathing and stretching and praying. When positive emotions are there, I would love you guys to nourish them, because this is why we are on this world, to be brothers to each other and love each other, not to harm.
Well said. All right, thank you. So we'll see you all on July the 12th, and Stela's coming in from Croatia to join us, and we'll talk about relationships further, and we look forward to it. All right, goodbye, Rebecca. Goodbye, Stella.
Hey, ladies. Bye.
Bye.